Hey everyone, Francis Walsh here again with thedigitalmerchant.com. And today we're going to be discussing Flippa.com and specifically some alternatives to it if you're buying or selling an online business. So there's 6 I've looked at here, and they're going to run the gamut from, I suppose, full service brokerages to platforms that are kind of, buyer and seller centric, kind of like Flippa. So really it's going to depend on your own needs and kind of your own preferences for a transaction like this, the size of your business, the degree of revenue generation that's there, your tolerance for scammers and low quality offers, and your ability to vet these yourself. So yeah, let's dive in. So 2 factors to consider here that I think it's kind of useful to get these out of the way before we look at any platforms in particular. So public versus private is the first one. So some of these options will be private brokerages, essentially, where there's not a public listing. So what would happen in those cases is the company will take your listing, kind of look at it, vet it, and then direct it to potential buyers that it feels are the most suitable. This means that you're not personally inundated with requests or, with offers that might not be high quality. But then on the flip side of that, there is, extra cost generally to this kind of arrangement. So, again, like I was saying, it really does depend on the point in the market at which you're at and your budget and your aims for the sale and things like that. Then general versus niche. So some of the platforms we look at here are going to cater to a specific segment of the market. So certain platforms deal with SaaS companies. Certain platforms are particularly good when it comes to offline businesses. Not all of them. So like Flippa, I know, is one example where there is no niching like this. It caters to pretty much everyone. So again, there are advantages and disadvantages depending on where you're coming from. But we'll dive into all that in a little bit more detail as the video goes on. So first off, we'll look at Flippa itself. Now, Flippa has been around since 2009. It's had a huge deal volume in that time. It has had a lot of satisfied buyers and sellers. And as you can see here on the website, it is, it's particularly geared towards the likes of blogs. So blogs, small websites, small e-commerce stores, things like that. It really does cater to the smaller end of the market in terms of deal size. And, as I was saying at the start, the difference kind of between brokerage sales and just between the general platform. Flippa is very much a general platform, right? You do get access to a broker if your deal size is over 100,000, and they will take some of the M&A work off your hands. But you are on your own for smaller sales, that are below that $100,000 threshold, which a lot of Flippa users are. So essentially, how that works is you post your business, the listing goes public, and then every Flippa user has the ability to access that listing and to contact you directly. So look, there are pluses and minuses to this. The big plus is that this level of exposure makes it easy to find a buyer for your business, because no matter how niche it is, no matter how difficult the sale is, you'll probably find a buyer out there who's willing to do business with you. The downside, of course, is that finding these buyers is kind of like finding a needle in a haystack at times, because what will happen is you'll be inundated with requests from scammers, from tire kickers, from people who are just trying to look for proprietary information under the guise of buying your business. So it's just like it's something to keep in mind. Really, I would recommend Flippa to kind of micro to small business sellers. I really don't think it's that suitable for bigger operations or for more valuable assets. But it does, a lot of people do successful business on Flippa. It's definitely worth having a look at. Another factor actually to mention here is the fact that there is a listing fee with Flippa. So it's not just a situation where you're selling a business and then the platform takes the commission out of the sale, which is the case with a lot of these platforms. With Flippa, there is a monthly listing fee, and it depends on the tier of service you go with. So you can do your own research into that, but these can get quite expensive, and obviously it's a monthly fee. So the longer your business is listed, the more money it's going to end up costing you. So this is just something to bear in mind as well. Look, they do have a reputation for getting sales done quickly. That is the case in a lot of cases. But I would just bear in mind that, it's maybe not the most budget friendly option if your listing does end up kicking around for a certain length of time. So QuietLight is the first Flippa alternative I'm going to look at here. And in a lot of ways, you can kind of view QuietLight as the direct opposite to Flippa. It's very much a white glove M&A brokerage firm. It's not going to publicly list your business. It's going to take care of all the vetting work on your behalf. It's going to try and match you up with qualified buyers, and it's going to examine your business at the outset to make sure it's sale ready. Now, there is a vetting process for sellers, so this again is something you won't get on Flippa, but basically when you approach QuietLight, they will look at your profile and at your business and make sure you are ready to go in terms of a sale. If you're not, you might not even succeed in getting listed on the platform. Now, obviously, there are advantages and disadvantages here. The advantage is that if you do pass the screening process, you're in a good position. And the company is obviously going to be in a position to take your business to buyers right away and to potentially get that deal moving. But the downside is that there's no guarantee you're going to get accepted. Whereas on Flippa, that's quite a quick process. You just apply, you get accepted probably in nearly all cases, and then your business is accessible to the entire market. So again, kind of depending on the type of asset we're dealing with, something I really like about QuietLight is the fact that all of their consultants are previous business owners who have gone through the process of building and selling a business. They've had successful exits themselves. They bring a huge amount of expertise to their work, which is, you can't beat, sector expertise. It really is the most important factor when you're trying to get anything done in the world of business. So that's something I'm a huge fan of. And also they really have a reputation for getting things done quickly. I think the statistic is that 85% of businesses get sold within 90 days. Now, obviously there's no guarantee of that, but it is a very encouraging statistic when you see that written down in black and white. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of QuietLight and everything they do. I've heard a lot of good stories about them. So yeah, if you are kind of a more upmarket business, if you have all your ducks in a row and you're ready to go with your sale, I think there's nowhere better, honestly, that you could look for a brokerage service than from QuietLight. So the next platform we'll be looking at is acquire.com. Now, acquire.com, I was mentioning at the start that there is a decision to be made around whether to go niche with your platform or whether to use kind of a general platform. Acquire is one of those more niche options. So it does cater specifically to kind of SaaS startups, because you can see it's even mentioned here on the website homepage. So they do cater to that vertical quite directly. And this is great if you are a company of a type which Acquire has sold previously, because obviously it has that network of buyers there that are interested in this kind of purchase. It knows exactly what to do with your kind of type of business to get it over the line. So that's really something to consider if you are a SaaS startup and you are kind of in that market range that Acquire caters to. It does offer a lot of benefits if you can work with someone who knows exactly what they're doing and has done something similar before. I think it has closed deals on over 2,000 businesses, and I think the combined transaction value there is over $500 million. So, it has quite a bit of experience in the space. It does work with kind of that mid-market sector of companies. But at the same time, there is more automation here than you will see from other kind of more white glove brokerage firms, like QuietLight, for instance. It's more on the automation side than QuietLight. So that's just something to be aware of too, is that you're probably not going to get the level of vetting that you would get with the likes of QuietLight, but it is more, I think, user-friendly than Flippa in that regard. You're not going to be seeing as many scammers and tire kickers, just because it's a little bit better in terms of the funneling. The matching up of buyers and sellers is a little bit more sophisticated here. And because they're operating kind of mainly in that niche as well of the kind of the software startup. I should note that it's not just software startups that Acquire deals with. They do work with online businesses of all types, but personally, I probably wouldn't recommend it unless you are in that SaaS space. I just think, if they're niched in that direction, I don't see why you would take a different type of business and try and sell it here, if you kind of have the other options of the other types of platforms that we're going to look at in this video. But yeah, if you're a SaaS startup, definitely have a look at Acquire. So the next platform we're going to look at here is Investors Club. Now, Investors Club really does cater to the kind of the lower end of the market. They deal mainly with 5-figure kind of exit sums, that kind of neck of the woods. And so there's an element of you get what you pay for here. This is kind of the bargain basement option. Unless you go with the premium tier, there's no listing fee, so you'll only pay once there's a successful exit. And that will depend again on the tier and the size of the business. But this really is more for smaller businesses. Because there's no listing fee, there's also no vetting. So it's kind of like Flippa in that you will be inundated with a lot of requests. Not all of them will be high quality. Most of them might not even be high quality. So yeah, it's just something to bear in mind. It's if you do have a smaller business and it's not a life-changing amount of money to you and you're not really interested in spending that much time on it, maybe it's worth having a look. To be honest, I would probably recommend Flippa over Investors Club if you are kind of in this segment. But at the same time, there are a lot of satisfied buyers and sellers here. It does offer a decent service. So, if you heard good things about it, it is probably worth checking out. So BizBuySell. Now, this is another very much a high volume platform, kind of like what you'll see with Flippa. I think it's something like 15 million page views they get every year, 65,000 businesses sold every year. So, it's really one of the bigger marketplaces out there for this kind of thing. And again, look, this has pluses and minuses. Essentially, it's cheap. You'll expose your business to a huge amount of eyeballs in terms of potential buyers, but you are going to have to do a lot of vetting yourself and deal with a lot of kind of time wasters. So I suppose just go in with a plan, really. If you're going to use BizBuySell, know how you're going to tackle the vetting process, and know what you're looking for in a qualified buyer. And look, you can save money versus some of the kind of the larger, more white glove sort of firms. But I would just be conscious of it. And to be honest, if your business is kind of a bigger asset, if it makes up a decent percentage of your portfolio, I would probably look elsewhere for a proper brokerage service that's going to do right by you and give you the right level of service. So Onfolio. Now, Onfolio is quite a bit different to anything else we're looking at here. It's not like a buy and sell platform. It's not a brokerage. It actually acquires businesses itself. It only works with businesses that are doing, I think usually only that are doing 500K a year in profits. So that's quite big. Most of, I would imagine a lot of people viewing this video are not going to be in a position to make a sale on Onfolio. But yeah, if you are in this position, I think it kind of does offer, it serves a particular segment of the market. I mean, if you are trying to offload a big business that's very profitable and that's doing those kinds of numbers, you're probably going to want a platform that can cater to that and that can really offer you the best possible value for a business at that level. If you're not suitable, if your business isn't suitable for Onfolio, it will refer you to a brokerage. So that's another thing to bear in mind. If you think you might be suitable, it might be worth going for a consultation just to see. And I know, as you can see here on the website, they have dealt with a lot of big companies. So yeah, I mean, if you are at that market segment, it's definitely worth having a consultation with them. They offer a great service. I would just be aware though that it's probably not for everyone. Now, Empire Flippers. Empire's been around since 2011, and in that time it has become, very well regarded in this space. As you can see, it's the #1 online business marketplace. Now, look, that's obviously a bit of marketing, but it is a market leader. It's very well known, and there have been a lot of companies that have made successful listings and exits through Empire. It does specialize more in the kind of the B2C, the direct to customer kind of area. It works with a lot of Amazon-based businesses, e-commerce sites, that kind of thing, more so than maybe like the SaaS sort of vertical that we've looked at with the likes of Acquire. So that's something to bear in mind. It is quite focused on curation. So there is, there's a vetting process. You do have to, undergo quite a bit of that kind of thing before you're accepted. And that can be quite time consuming. Even if you do end up getting accepted, it does lengthen the process for you as a seller before you make your exit and get your money, I suppose. But yeah, if you're in the B2C niche and you're doing good business, I don't see any reason not to give Empire a try. But to be honest, I think it's not my favorite. The vetting process does take a while. It is a little bit arduous, and I just think there are better options out there for anyone who's buying or selling an online business. So I suppose in summation, just some final thoughts. Really what I would recommend is to consider your specific needs. Like, do you need a brokerage arrangement? How are you with vetting buyers? Are you confident that you'll be able to do it yourself? And are you in a niche that is catered to by one of the options here? So are you a SaaS firm? If so, maybe look at Acquire. Are you a B2C e-commerce type business? If so, maybe start with Empire. To be honest, overall, for the biggest number of businesses, my recommendation would be QuietLight. I think it really does do a good job of the vetting process. You're dealing with really experienced consultants who have done exits themselves and know exactly what goes into the process, knows what makes a good buyer, knows what the pain points are of sellers that they're trying to get around and trying to navigate as they, go through the selling process. So, and I just think they offer a really great service from top to bottom. If you're dealing with a smaller business, one that's not going to qualify on QuietLight, Flippa does offer a great service. But I really would be cautious about listing anything on Flippa that's not in that kind of micro to small range. I just think for anything that's a little bit bigger, that's generating some revenue, that's, that comprises a decent part of your portfolio, I just think you should look to like a more comprehensive kind of brokerage service. So that my QuietLight would kind of be my recommendation then in that scenario. But yeah, best of luck to anyone who's selling a business at the moment. I know it's not the easiest process. It can be quite demanding and stressful. So yeah, I hope you all do well. And that's all from me on this video, and I'll see you in the next one.